Hello, welcome back to Soul Search Sunday with Johnny Tiger on May 30th, 2021. Happy Memorial Day weekend to our American viewers and friends. I know it's uh, going to be Memorial Day there tomorrow. What's been happening? Well, I got my vaccine, first dose of the vaccine this last week, and right now, it's still up in the air when we can expect the next dose. Seems like they change their mind here in Canada every few days, and we are being told conflicting stories first, uh, 3 or 4 months, and then maybe 8 weeks, and then maybe sooner than that. And now we are hoping that our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau would see fit to open the border pretty soon. But according to what he said on the news, he's not going to open that border until at least 75% of Canadians are vaccinated. I actually checked on the net earlier to see what progress we are making, and right now we are sitting at a whopping 5%. Only 5% of Canadians been fully vaccinated, and he wants 75% before he will open that border. Man, I don't even want to think about that. It's just so depressing to think about it. Oh well, nothing we can do about it. Just keep our chin down and do the best we can. What else is new? Well, my friend Wayne, who I mentioned 3 or 4 weeks ago, that's passing away. He has finally decided to he decided that he's had enough of this nonsense, and he is going to go and get the medically assisted suicide done. His departure day will be June 1st, so uh, this coming Tuesday. That's when Wayne will say goodbye to the rest of us and go on the next leg of his journey. I have gotten most of the grief and most of the tears out of my system since I first heard the news of him uh, dying of this throat cancer condition. So, yeah, I'm feeling okay. Still a little bit sad, but I pretty much came to terms with this, and in many ways, I totally understand and support his decision. He can't even eat on his own now, and everything he eat or drink has to be given to him through a nutrient tube, feeding tube. He can't even talk, and he's having a lot of hard time walking. In the past 10 years, Wayne and I had had many conversations where he expressed that he's so glad that he still could enjoy a healthy body and healthy diet and have a great sense of humor and exercise a lot because he said this more than once, that as soon as he's not having fun anymore, then it would be time to move on. So I guess in my head, I always knew that this was going to happen, and I'm glad that he's able to, even at the very last moment in his life, being able to be the master of his destiny, being able to call the shot and make this decision for himself. For that, I'm really glad. I'm glad that the suffering will be over with soon, and I hope that his next journey will be just as adventurous and wonderful as this past one. Wing and like I said before, go back a long time. He's known me since I was a
The
child
time is now 9 p.m.
or a teenager, anyway. And he's always been that. grandfatherly figure in my life. Both of my grandfather passed away early. I never met my grandfather on my dad's side, and I never got a chance to really get to know my grandpa on my mom's side. So eh, I guess some people say they have mommy issue, daddy issue. You can say that through my life, I've always had a little bit of a grandparent issue because I never got to know either side of my grandparents. So probably that's why I always gravitate towards people who I get that grandmotherly, grandfatherly feel in them. And Wayne was like the best grandfather a person could have asked for. The kind of grandfather that take you fishing, teach you how to hunt and fish and clean and build and fix things, and the kind of grandfather that would sit with you and tell you war stories and the good old days and teach you wisdom and the value of independence, freedom, honesty, the value of anger, sadness. He taught me so much about how to be honest with emotions. Speaking of the word honest, that makes me think that we live in a world where everyone like to say they like honesty, everyone like to say they hate being lied to, and uh, other than my own father, I've actually never heard of anyone else that beg people to lie to them. My dad is like, this is one of the things that make my dad really unconventional. From a very early age, when I was little, my father said to us, he said, if you believe telling me the truth is going to piss me off, then go ahead and lie to me. I don't mind. As long as you make me happy, I don't mind if you're lying to me. That was his teaching to us. And that was a really interesting way to teach your children, and a very interesting way to live your life. My father would really willingly deceive himself or be deceived as long as it keeps him happy. Now, perhaps growing up in a family like that, with a head of the household having that kind of philosophy or personality, uh, that I myself have experienced some seriously messed up lies when I was growing up. So today I want to tell you guys of the three big lies that almost ruined me, but ended up helping me become a better person. The first lie, told to me by my stepmother, my father's ex-wife, and my siblings, and some family members that sympathized with them, identified with them, was from a very early age, from when I was 9 years old, I was told that I was ugly as sin. I was butt ugly. I was so ugly that I probably would stay being a virgin for the rest of my life. I was so ugly that no one would even want to look at me. I was so ugly that no one would ever care about me. The way that it was put to me was that I was lucky that I was blind because I couldn't see how ugly I was, and all my siblings were better looking than me, and everyone else in the world was better looking than me. I was the ugly duckling in reality. This is why I always identify with the story of the ugly duckling, because that was me. When I was uh, being told that day in and day out. And see, this is a very subtle, a very sneaky thing about this lie. Uh, when you are told by enough people around you, day in and day out, that you are something, even if you are not, Unless you have very strong psychological defenses, which I didn't have when I was a child, you eventually come to think that maybe they are right. And then on top of that, I couldn't see. I couldn't look in the mirror and verify it for myself. I didn't know who to trust. My mom told me I looked fine, but she's my mom. Of course, she was going to tell me I looked fine. I could look like a pile of dog poo and she would still love me and tell me I looked fine. Same with my nanny, Maru. She told me I looked great, but again, she loved me so much that I could have looked like Frankenstein's monster and she would still say I looked great. My dad basically just said, "Ah, you look okay. It's kind of hard to tell. You're still a child. We won't know until you grow up." Well, that to me sounded like my dad's trying to be nice. That to me sounded like my dad said, "Hey, yeah, you are really ugly, but hey, you're still young. You might change. You might change. We'll see." So, with my stepmother and her children, my siblings, all telling me that I was ugly day in and day out, with their friend telling me I was ugly day in and day out, with their side of the family, the relatives that were siding with them, telling me, yeah, they were right day in and day out. I grew up with a very low kind of self-esteem when it came to my marketability, my uh, appeal to people, whether to opposite gender or anyone. Let me tell you this: when I was a teenager, for the longest time, and sometimes even after I became an adult, when people came to visit, I would dash into my bedroom and make sure I had my sunglasses on, make sure was dressed properly, make sure I had my hair right. I would feel this trepidation in my heart coming out to meet guests or friends uh, or relatives, and in the back of my mind was, oh my God, I'm ugly. Oh my God, they're going to see me and they're going to judge me. Like, for the longest time when I was growing up, I struggled with that. Of course, later, when I went to high school and university and started having girlfriends and started hearing from more people, I realized that they lied to me like big time. Uh, but it's a slow process. The healing process, the to get out of that brainwashing was long and torturous. Uh, it took me almost to my 30s before I realized, I admitted to myself that I could embrace the fact that, yeah, Johnny Tiger, you're not the best looking guy in the world, but you know what? You're far from ugly. You look okay. You look fine. A lot of people like you. A lot of people, really think you look great. That's okay. That's good. You look fine. You don't need to always wear your glasses. You don't always need to have your hair perfect. You don't always need to dress perfect. Just be you. Just be like you. You are fine. So what did this big lie do to me that it actually helped me? At the same time that this big lie threatened to destroy my self image, my self esteem as a teenager, at the same time that it all but convinced me that I was probably the most unappealing, the most ugly person in the world, it made me work very, very, very hard in my fitness and in uh, being a nice person. Because in the back of my mind, I decided, okay, I'm ugly. I'm the most ugly person in the world. I can't help that. But you know what I can do? Is I can build big muscles. I can be fit. I can move with confidence. I can learn how to move with grace. So yeah, okay, I may have the ugliest face in the world, but I may still end up with the built most pretty, most handsome body, the most handsome posture in the world. That I can do something about. I may be the most ugly person in the world, but uh, if I work on being a nice person, if I work on my vocabularies and the way I communicate, then even though I might have the ugliest face in the world, I may end up with the most friendly, most attractive personality. That I can do. So from an early age, I focused super hard on trying to build up my physical presence and build up my psychological presence. So uh, eventually, that set me up on becoming a well-received performer, musician, athlete, and almost everything else that I've been able to accomplish and do for the rest of my life because I now have the physical attribute to do so, and I have the personality to uh, handle the kind of situation I get in where I have to socialize and be appealing to the public. The second big lie, this one was told to me by my mom, no less, told me, was that it was all my fault that she was in an abusive relationship. This one really messed me up. I can't even begin to describe to you guys the guilt that this set on me as a child. Because my mom started telling me this way back when I was like 5 or 6 years old. Every time she would have a fight with my dad, every time she would get beat up by my dad, and when she was crying, and I asked my mom, I said, "Mom, why don't you do something?" And she would say, "Because it's because of you. Because I am staying because I don't want you to grow up without a father. I'm staying because of you. If you weren't here, then I would have been gone long ago." Again, sounded totally logical when I was a child, and I grew up with that guilt on my shoulder until I finally grew up and I left home. I said, "Mom, I'm not there anymore. How come you're still there? How come you're not leaving him?" And my mom said, "Well, because I've been with him for so long and I would feel bad leaving him now. Don't ask silly questions. Why are you trying to make your mom leave your dad? You're a bad person." That's when I realized that all those years she made me believe that it was all my fault. It wasn't. It wasn't my fault. It had nothing to do with me. It was so good, such a relief to put that burden down after carrying it for over 10 years. Every time she would get beat up, yelled at, cussed out by my dad, I would feel it was my fault. Finally, I didn't have to feel that way anymore. At the same time, while I was dealing with that immense guilt from this big lie, it also set me up for success. How so? Because my mom constantly telling me that it was my fault that she's there. If I wasn't there, then she wouldn't be there. So from a very early age, I made up my mind that as soon as I was capable, I would be out of there. I would leave. I wouldn't be there to to make her stay. I figured that as soon as I left, then she would leave too. Then she wouldn't have to be abused anymore. So from a very early age, I prepared myself mentally, financially, uh, try to learn all the right skill set to accomplish that. I set up my mind that as soon as I could, I would be out of there. And true to my own word, before I was even out of high school, when I was still 17 years old, almost 18, I left and I've been living on my own ever since. And that was probably the best decision I ever made. It was hard the first few days, few months, few years of living alone as a blind person in a foreign country with no relatives, very few friends, was very difficult. But it was the best decision I could have made for myself for my entire life. The third big lie, interestingly enough, was told to me again by my stepmother, my father's ex-wife, and my siblings. They were her children, actually, so I guess half siblings, and even by my dad. And my dad had a hand in this lie too. The third big lie was I was not at all like my father. In fact, when I was little, my stepmother and her children kept telling me that I didn't look like my dad, I didn't act like my dad, I was too weak, I was too ugly. My dad was handsome, my dad was strong, and I was blind, and my dad was sighted. And uh, they would make me think that I actually wasn't my father's real child. They made up stories like, my mom cheated on my dad, and then my dad felt sorry for me because they couldn't find my real father, and that's why my dad kept me, and then that's why I wasn't anything like my dad. So all that, like again, this kind of day in and day out, hammering this into my head. I wasn't like my dad. Maybe I wasn't his real son. And then my dad, on the other hand, would constantly say, well, my older brother David was more like him because David is more devious and more unconventional. And my younger brother was more like him because my younger brother looked more like him, more fair and slight of build. And I was stocky, I was awkward, I didn't look like him at all. And so all that time I was growing up, even today, my father still said that I'm nothing like him, and my brother David, my brother Peter, they're more like him. Which let's step back and really examine this. Uh, it's really preposterous. It's like very ridiculous. He says my older brother David is like him because David is unconventional and he liked to make money the easy way. He liked to risk. He's a risk taker. He likes to do illegal stuff. So his thought process is more like my dad. Yeah, okay, that I'll admit. And my dad said my younger brother Peter built and looked more like him because Peter's got that really good looking, like handsome, pretty boy thing going on, and he's more slight of build, and he's not as tall, he's not as broad, he's more compact, in other words. And so, yeah, uh, Peter looked more like my dad. That I will also admit. But what my dad refuses to see is where him and I share similarity. We share so much similarity that my brothers and sisters can't even begin to compete. For example, I spent my life playing piano and guitar. My father, when he was younger, played piano and guitar. I am involved with movies and documentaries. My dad, once upon a time, was an actor. My father was a highly accomplished martial artist. He was second degree black belt in judo. Now, while I did not advance that much in judo, I would venture to say that I count myself as a very accomplished martial artist. So we have that in common. My father, when he was living in Hong Kong, to better himself, he dedicated every day of his life to learn Japanese so he could deal with Japanese customers at work. When I first came to Canada, I dedicated every day of my life learning English so I could interact with teachers and other students here in Canada. The list goes on and on when I am old enough to realize, to look back in how much I am like my father. I am like my father in ways that my siblings can't even begin to compare. None of them play guitar or piano. None of them do martial art. None of them do fitness or bodybuilding. None of them spend or dedicated their time to learn a different language so they could get ahead in their life. So what did this big lie do to help me? While I grew up feeling ashamed that I wasn't like my dad, while I grew up feeling insecure that maybe I wasn't his real son, at the back of my mind, I also came to the conclusion, fine, since everyone tell me I'm not like him, since he's telling me I'm not like him, then I don't have to be like him. I'm going to be totally different. I'm going to have my own identity. I'm going to do things my way. I'm not going to be like him. I'm not even going to try because they say I'm not like him. So why should I even try to be like him? I am going to do the opposite of everything he does. So while my father's life is about making money and being powerful and influential, I dedicated my life to serve the community, to help people, to make friends, to live free and happy. While my father let anger be his dominant emotion, I decided that I want to be different. I want to be calm and collected. So, as we can see, all these three lies are immense, enormous, devastating lies that I had to live with for many, many years. But at the same time, I found a way to transform them into positive energy that help me do positive things for the rest of my life. So maybe in the end, being lied to is not always that bad. If you enjoy these daily videos, then please do check out the Johnny Tiger Experience podcast. You can find it on any podcast platform, on Spotify, Apple Podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts. Just search for Johnny Tiger Experience and you will find it. We are up to episode 75. There you will find all these fitness, martial art, soul searching, wisdom, action figure review, all these goodies just in audio format and in way more details. So please do check it out and subscribe to the podcast. I really appreciate you guys spending this time with me, listening to a blind guy rambling on and on. Thank you for checking out today's Soul Search Sunday. We'll be back again tomorrow for Music Monday. For now, have a good night.